Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Steven Inks. My name is Steven, and today we're going to be cleaning some of my fountain pens. Then I'm going to draw with one of them, and I'm going to talk about something called the 3-pen rule, something that I abide by. I can't wait to show you. Let's check it out. Right, so this is my setup for cleaning my pens. It's pretty simple. Really, I've just got these 3 containers, these little glass jars, ramekins. One is going to be for offloading ink into, and the other one is going to be for the parts that I take apart when I remove the pens from their pieces as much as possible. And this one in the center here is going to be for drawing up water that I'll use to clean out the pens. I have a little cup on the side with a little more water. And I also have this piece of a towel that I have used for cleaning inks and watercolors in the past, just off to the side in case of spills. I do normally do this over my sink, but I thought you might like to see a little cleaner background than what my bathroom looks like. And I also have this silicone grease that I will use if I see an occasion to use it. Some of the pens are easy to use that with, and some of them you would rarely use them. So we'll get into it now. So for pen number 1, I'm going to be using my Black Forest, Hongdian Black Forest pen. And the reason why I'm doing this first is because it's one of the more common types of pens. It is a cartridge converter pen, and it has a converter inside it, and I'll show you how I clean it up. We tend to do this, or I tend to do this in the exact same way, which is flush out all the extra ink, take the pen apart as much as is allowed, and then let it soak in warm water, and then later we'll come back and we'll dry the pieces off and put it back together. So I don't typically clean the pen body or cap unless there's been like a spill or something. And this one has not, the pen has never leaked on me, so this is all pretty clean. If you are wondering whether or not your pen does have a leak or an ink spill inside it, what you can do is take a Q-tip and run it inside and just kind of swirl it around in there, pull it out. There's a little something, but I don't think it's enough to really warrant a full cleaning. And you could also just, if you want, you can wet this Q-tip, bring it in there, swirl it around, and then let it air dry. I'll just go ahead and get the rest out of there. You can do the same thing with the body, but yeah, this is water-based ink. It's not really gonna cause any problems with corrosion or anything like that. Yeah, the main cleaning area that we're going to be focusing on is the nib, feed, what part of the section might have ink in it, and of course the converter itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place it in the water, draw it up, and let's see what we've got. This is going to be kind of a test of how clean the pen is as a whole. This is not that dirty. There's a little bit of pink in that water, but it's mostly clean. So we won't have to do much with this one. We're just going to keep drawing it up, and the goal is to get it clear. And this one is, like I said, this is pretty clean. I may have already cleaned this before, but after doing it about 3 times, normally you do it for longer, but this looks pretty clear to me. So the next part is going to be to take the pieces apart as much as they will come apart, and you need to know your pens in order to find out what's what. But so this comes apart, and I'm going to soak it in the warm water with the converter open. There we go. And then the Hongdian is actually a twist off, and I've never been able to get that little section right there any more detached than that, so I just soaked that directly, and then that one is done. So next up, what we're going to do is another cartridge converter, my Pilot Kakuno. The thing that makes this one unique is, first of all, this does deconstruct completely, so we're going to do that. But it also has that Pilot Con 70 push button style converter, so that presents some of its own issues, and we're going to look at that right now. Once again, I rarely, especially in the case of this clear plastic body where you can totally see that it hasn't been dripped on or spilled or leaked or anything, I rarely clean those unless they really need it. So I'm going to take this section right here and I'm going to draw ink up by pushing the button. And when I do that, you can see it comes up here, and I'm going to push that extra ink in. All right, it's pretty clean, but you can definitely see that there is some ink trapped in there from the last time that I used this pen. So it's a good idea to just get everything out. And I do all of this before I go ahead with any kind of detachment. So I just try to send warm, clean water, no soap or anything inside it, just into the body of the pen until I start getting it out a little bit or a lot cleaner than I was getting it before. And if you saw before, it was like that kind of light blue color, and now the water in there is pretty clear. Doesn't even look like there's any water in there, but there definitely is. All right, now I'm going to start taking it apart. Here's a Con 70. It's got a lot of dirt and stuff inside of it. Unfortunately, it is a very hard converter to clean, so we're stuck with that as it is. Taking my rag and putting it over the nib gently, I'm going to pull. And you definitely don't want to force this to happen. Some pens do not detach like this, where you can get the feed and the nib in separate sections, and that's just going to go into this soaking pile. And the section is also going to go in there too. So we get everything just kind of soaking. Make sure we push out any air bubbles that are trapped in there, just to make sure that we get plenty of soak time. And I'm going to do the converter individually a little bit too, just to see if I can get any more stuff out of there. But it's, like I said, this thing is finicky. You might have seen that little blue ink spurt out, and it looks like it did a little bit, got a little bit of something out of there. Looking at this converter up close, if you could see what's inside here, it's mostly inaccessible, like you can't get in there with anything. If I were to try and put my my Q-tip from before in there, I could clean out this little section right here to some degree, but I can't go much further in there. It's pretty cut off, and I don't want to break my converter, so that's about as far as I can get, and it's gonna soak. I'm gonna fill it up with as much water as I can. I do feel that these Con 70s do not fill easily. I've heard that there's a video where you're supposed to do it super fast, but I still don't get very much ink into that converter, so what's the point? Anyway, those are all soaking. Got two more pens we're going to show you, and we're going to be done. All right, so my pieces from the other pens are soaking off camera because we were running out of space here, and we're going to need a lot of space coming up because what we have next is my Penbbs 456, and this is a vac filler, but I'm actually not going to do the filling mechanism with this one. Once again, the cap is clean, and this is of course a pen where the ink actually goes directly into the body, but what I'm going to do is actually take the head off the pen, and I'm just going to go straight in with the vacuum filling mechanism and get water in there right away. So this I'm actually going to do this in the soaking bowl because this is going to get real inky real fast. All right, so you see that? That's going to put a lot of ink in there. And there's really very little point, I think, in running this one through the feed and the nib. I may do that again later, but there's so much ink in here, and I guess that's a criticism of these vacuum fillers. When they're almost out of ink, they do tend to kind of stop working before you've really used up all the ink you got in there, so you do end up cleaning out a lot of ink. I'm sure most pen enthusiasts don't mind that so much, but it's just something to think about. So there's some ink in there, definitely plenty of ink. And this, I'm going to put this on my off camera, maybe later. And for this one as well, it's a twist off, like the Black Forest, and I'm getting my hands inky for the first time, so I'm going to just drop that in there for a little bit. I'll come pick it up in a few minutes. In the meantime, let's look at the body of the pen. And one thing that you can do, because this is just a big wide open space into where that stuff is you can go in there with a Q-tip or something and clean out some of the extra ink that's sort of muddled along the side of this thing, and get it nice and clean. You can also pull it back, and this is where Q-tip comes in handy because you can go in deep where you wouldn't be able to put your finger in like that, but you can actually clean and dry it out. And look at how clean and pristine that is. That's about as clean as I can get it, and that's good enough for me. Another thing that I might do at this point in time, I will do it this time, but I don't do it, every time that I clean my pen is using silicone grease, because it can, this rubber stopper will actually create a lot of friction along the edge of this pen, which the silicone grease is what that's for, but you don't need to do this every time you clean it. So I will show you how I grease this up. This is a very small container, and that is a hint. You do not need very much. And a lot of people will just put this silicone grease directly in with their fingers. I don't like the feeling of silicone grease on my fingers, so that's why I'm doing it this way. I'm just going to go to the edge and just kind of twirl it around a little bit, get some going on the walls of the pen. You don't have to even go around the whole thing because we're going to actually use the mechanism to spread the silicone grease by opening and closing this mechanism, and you can see that it touches the outer edge, so it's going to spread that silicone grease. And again, you don't need to do this every time, but if you notice that a pen that you really love is starting to stick a little bit, you maybe want to do that before the inside area becomes damaged. And this is true for piston fillers and vacuum fillers. You just kind of want to do that. And this silicone grease is non-water soluble, so you can just leave it directly to soak after you're done, and that is no problem at all. So leaving that to soak, and let's pick up our section now, which has a little bit of ink in it, but yeah, that's pretty clean. It's a little bit dark, which you have the opportunity now. This is just basically a ring of plastic, so you can take your Q-tip if you want to just clean off the edges there. And letting it soak is really important because there's some little fragments of things that you might not want to see on your pen And same thing here, soaking in clean water is essential for that. And we'll leave it even for a few hours. All right, that's it for that pen. Final pen we are looking at today. This is possibly one of my favorite pens, both to write with and to clean with. It is my Twsbi Eco, and this represents piston filling pens that come apart completely. The Noodler's pens are like this, as well as my Fountain Pen Revolution Japir. So if you have the ability to take a pen apart completely, I recommend that you do it because you get a chance to clean out things that have gotten dirty. So once again, the cap, I'm going to leave that alone. You can always swish it out with a Q-tip if you feel like it's getting dirty. And then I'm going to depress the plunger for the piston, and I'm going to draw water up through the body. And then we're looking at something pretty dark here. So we're going to just drop that into this disposal kind of area. If I was doing this over my bathroom sink like I normally do, this would just go into the sink. Pretty quickly we're seeing, even though there's dark spots in the pen body, which we can get to in a little bit, I am seeing cleaner water come up pretty quickly. Like if you compare what it looked like that first time to what we're seeing coming out of the pen now, there's bubbles of course, but that's pretty clear. So this only took a couple of moves. Obviously you can see that if you're drawing the water up and then putting it back into the same cup, you're going to get that ink pigment into the cup, which makes it hard to tell if you're clean or not. So that's why I recommend you just kind of get rid of that water, either put it down the sink or put it into another container. And yeah, so there's those dark spots down by the section in the feed, but I'd say we're getting clean water through this. So that's where we're going to put that one to a stop. And I'm going to take out the nib. Once again, I'm going to use my towel, hold gently but firmly and pull. And you don't want to force this. Some of your pens won't do it right away. You want to have that firm but gentle tug. The nib and the feed are going to go separately into that container. We'll let them soak for a while. We'll come back later in the afternoon to look at that. And I'm going to do a real good cleaning of this Twsbi Eco today. I don't always do this, but this pen actually does have the ability to come apart completely. And when you buy your Twsbi Eco, it comes with this little wrench. And I am going to show this to you because I think it's pretty cool. Again, I've only done this a couple of times. This is not necessary when you're just doing a basic cleaning. You can just do the stuff that I did just now, especially if you're going to put the same color ink in it. But you put this wrench into this section right here, right below the piston, and then you're going to turn it, and I am turning it counterclockwise. And it just goes like it was meant to do this. So that's one thing I really love about the Twsbi Eco. It was made to be taken apart. So maintenance on this pen is really easy to do. And so once you've gotten the threads loose, it's still going to be really tight because this rubber gasket is holding it in. You can actually pull on it and pull it out completely. In the case with this pen, what I would do is I would put silicone grease around the rubber threads because I can pull them out completely, and I will do that in a minute. But the first thing that I want to do is get in there with my Q-tips, get this with a little bit of water on it, and I clean it out. And I don't use soaps or fancy cleaners or anything like that, certainly not anything alcohol based, because I don't want to hurt my pens, and they can be finicky, especially if they're made of some special materials. So you really just are getting in there with a Q-tip, warm water, no soap. And then the Q-tip is helpful for areas like this that are really far down the tube. There's no way you could reach that with your, with your fingers, unless you got really tiny fingers, which sounds a little bit creepy. So cleaning that out right there. And then look at how much ink came out with that. Quite a bit. I'm just going to do another, I got another clean Q-tip right here, and I'm just going to do a little bit more. And then I can also clean these rings off as well to some extent. It'll never be perfect. You're definitely going to always get the impression that your pen has been used. Nothing wrong with that. These little threads here are problematic if you want a squeaky clean pen. One of the issues that comes up sometimes with cleaning a piston filler, especially one that doesn't come apart completely, is that you do get water inside the piston, which is going to water down your ink levels. So, you know, in order to avoid that, was one of the nice things that Twsbi here has allowed the pen to be removed, taken apart completely, so you can actually soak all that stuff up. And one thing that I do sometimes with my little towel here is, we'll see how far I can go into here, is just get a little bit in there. And this is going to clean out not just the ink, but it's going to clean out whatever other stuff was in there, including lubricant. So we do, if we do something like this, we do definitely want to re-lubricate. So like I said, I don't do this all the time. This is a once in a while type of cleaning. I don't think that my towel is going to go in there. So maybe that's it. And we're going to place this guy in some water. See if we can get a little more of that ink to come out. And then we'll check in with reconstructing the pens after they've soaked and dried. Okay, so this is the Twsbi Eco after it's been detached and pulled apart. In this case, I've actually removed some of the lubricant that was already on there, so we're going to redo this with the silicone grease, and just need a little bit. With this wrenching here, we're just going to pop it in. Just try and pull that down. And voila, you can see now it's got some lubricant in there. I might have put a little too much in there, but it'll work. Keeping that Eco running nice and fine. Cool. Actually, this is not completely in, so let me just keep going here. All right, there we go. Okay, looking good. I decided that it's time to take one of my pens out for a spin. Now that it's nice and clean, I choose the Hongdian Black Forest for a very specific reason. And that reason is that I got some extra nibs for the pen. So you can actually purchase these for the Hongdian pens. And I think other pens in the same line as the Black Forest, these will work. And it comes with a set of 3. I believe this one, let's take a closer look at it. This one is an extra fine, which is what's already in the pen, so I got a spare one there. And this is a fine. And this one is my second ever Fude nib. So we're going to play with this Fude nib and see if it's how it compares to the Fude nib from our last video. In order to install a pen on one of these, in order to install a nib on one of these pens, what you first got to do is take off the cap, take apart the section, because you do actually need to remove the converter so that it's not attached to anything inside, otherwise you won't be able to pull the nib out. And this is a twist style nib, so you want to grip this end really quickly or really firmly, excuse me, and untwist it. Then you get a section that looks exactly like the pen itself, and I'm just gonna put this little plastic cap from the Fude nib on there so we keep that nice and safe. And then just like how you pulled the other nib out, you're gonna put this one in just by twisting it into place until it's nice and snug. And there we go. We've got a Fude nib on this Hongdian Black Forest. I really like this pen, so I hope I like this version of it as well. But we shall see. The ink for today, I decided on a black ink, and that's going to be Noodler's Heart of Darkness. I do like the darkness of this ink. I'm not a huge fan of this bottle, though. I kind of like the usual Noodler's bottles, because this eyedropper gets in the way unless you're doing some eyedropper pen stuff, in which case you might enjoy this larger size bottle that has its own little dropper. All right, let's get this pen filled up. I'm gonna do a double fill just to get more ink into it. So I have all that to play with, and that looks nice. All right, we're ready to blot this off, and we're gonna draw. Okay, really quick, just before we get into it, I wanted to take my pen loop, and this is my Sailor Fude de Manin, and this is the Fude nib for the Black Forest, and I just wanted to kind of compare, if I could, the angles and confirm that there appears to be, it's really hard with this very shallow depth of field here, but there appears to be a difference in the angle, this one being a more abrupt angle and this one being a little more of a relaxed angle, a little bit more flat. So basically I've heard that, let's take this pen loop off. Basically I've heard that these two pens, there's two different angles for Fude nibs. A lot of people mentioned this on my last video. And so one of them is supposed to be super comfortable and one of them is supposed to be kind of uncomfortable. So we're gonna see which one we've got with the Fude de Manin and which one we've got with the Black Forest. I don't know, let's find out. So this drawing is actually a little bit different from other ones in that I didn't speed it up as much as I normally do. This is sped up to about 400%, so 4 times the speed that I was actually drawing at. And I was drawing a little bit faster today because I wanted to take advantage of kind of the happy little accidents that I've mentioned that Fude nibs kind of give you with those wider ink swaths from the broad end of the nib. See how that came out. And this drawing actually has a particular importance to me, maybe a sentimental value, because I drew it for the first time when I reached 200 followers on Instagram over 6 years ago. And I currently have just over 300 subscribers on Instagram 6 years later. So by the timeline that I have set out, I should have 1,000 followers on Instagram by the time I've been dead for 10 years. or, well, that might slow down my growth. So I've got to have a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. Yeah, follow me for more tips on how to be an unpopular Instagrammer. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about was the 3-pen rule, and I'll talk more about this pen if I have the time after I'm done. So I just counted my pens, and I have around 30, which doesn't seem like a lot for someone who does YouTube videos about pens, and it's true, that's not a whole lot, that's not a horrifying amount, and I do plan to downsize my pen collection soon, so look out for some giveaways of some stuff that is too good to throw away, but like to send off to you guys, so keep your eyes out for those events coming up soon. But what I made, and this is just kind of a arbitrary rule that I made for myself, and actually it's something that I kind of break all the time, it just kind of became solidified in my mind, is the 3-pen rule, which means that I only ink up 3 pens at a time, and once one pen is empty, I clean it out, put it back with my other pens, and I choose something new. And using that method, really, unless I really don't like a pen, I tend to use all my pens, because it takes me about 2 weeks to use up a pen that's filled, except for really high capacity pens like my Eco, which takes longer. And yeah, the number 3 isn't arbitrary either. It's one pen is one that's acceptable for work, usually a thinner lined pen, not too expensive, because I don't know about you guys, but I live in an environment or my work is an environment where there's a lot of people coming through all the time. You know, on a given weekday, I have 70 to 150 small children coming through my classroom where I teach, and some of them do have a habit to pick up shiny things. So I don't want any of my losses to be terribly expensive. So usually pens under $30 will go to work, and I need to have one inked up that's going to do good on various types of paper, because my work and note taking and whatever I have available to me. And then I need another pen for kind of the novelty angle. So I would never ink up a Fude pen if it was only 2 pens, because then I'd have the work pen and the one at home. And if I wanted to do some drawing with just a regular fine line pen, that would be too much. So 3 is the number that's acceptable to me. And just keeping 3 pens inked at all times really helped me just kind of be honest about what pens do I actually need, what pens do I actually like, and if a pen hasn't been in rotation for a while, I can start to think, well, maybe this pen isn't for me, or maybe I already have a pen that does what I want this pen to do. And I have examples of that, like the Kakuno, which I really like, and the penmanship, which is pretty much the same pen. You wouldn't need to have both of them, so I may be giving one of those pens away soon. And so yeah, that's my 3-pen rule. Do you have any rules like that for how you govern and use your fountain pens? I'd love to hear it. Drop me a comment below the video, and maybe I'll be adopting some of those rules if they seem like really smart rules for me to have. We have a minute or 2 left before this drawing finishes. I think the slowed down pace of it is nice for this drawing. Let me know what you think about slightly slower. And I had to do this one in portrait because of the shape of the art there. But yeah, I think I really do prefer the Hongdian Fude nib to the Sailor, and it could have to do with the angle. As I mentioned, the angles are slightly different. Also, just it's obvious that I enjoy the feel of that Black Forest in my hand over the kind of cheap plastic of the Sailor. Not to say that the Sailor is a bad pen, but it is, you know, it's a cheaper pen. The Black Forest is about twice the price, even though it is also not an expensive pen. So the Black Forest plus the the Fude nib is going to be about 3 times the price of the Sailor, but we're still talking under 30 bucks. So it's a really good option, and I think I enjoy drawing with a Fude nib from the Black Forest more than with the Sailor. So let that be what it is to you. If you already have a Black Forest and you just want to try out Fude nibs, I do recommend, and you can find a link to it down at the bottom of the description of this video, along with all the stuff that I used today. I highly recommend this nib as something you might like. So that's all I had to say today. Thanks for checking me out, and hope you enjoyed watching this drawing. Well, hope you enjoyed seeing how I clean my pens and seeing what I make with my pens. If you enjoyed that and you like content like this, please like, subscribe, and comment below if you have any rules, like the 3-pen rule for how you use, fill, or what kind of fountain pens you purchase. Would love to hear them down below. Once again, thank you so much for your time, for listening to, watching, and commenting on these videos. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you next time.